Right. Well, good afternoon. Thank you everyone for your time in joining us today for this session on NotebookLM. I'm Scott. I'm the product owner for messaging and collaboration, and NotebookLM is one of the new tools that's come into our arena quite recently. So today's training session, I've got Adrian from Using Technology Better. He'll be running through the training today with us. I've also got Rob Carso, who's one of our tech coaches. He's online here as well, and I'm not sure if Michelle's online, but she's another one of our technology coaches as well. So if you see them around the building or online, say hello to them as well. So NotebookLM, it's this great new tool that's come out. It's we've found a lot of different use cases besides just being a place to perhaps upload a few documents and ask some questions. It is a utility that we're discovering more and more about, where you almost use it as a pseudo chatbot for asking questions on a whole bunch of documents. Plus many other use cases. So today's session is just going to be giving you a bit of an intro to run through what are some of the possibilities and how to use the basics. And then at the end, I'll jump on and I'll actually show you some actual use cases which some team members in the business are playing with at this particular time. And they do want to roll out to some 800 team members if they can. NotebookLM is available to every named account in the organization now. So if you're a support office team member or even a store manager and you've got a named account, you have access to NotebookLM. And if you're not sure how to get to it, I'm just going to post the link in here and I'm going to pin that. So if you haven't logged in there yet, definitely go to NotebookLM, say try NotebookLM, and it'll sign you in with your Woolworths account. And just a couple of quick points on when you sign in. You are in with your Woolworths account. You cannot share this externally, so it is locked down to the internal environment only, and it is there available. If you create a notebook, you can share it to a Google group or to other team members out there. Anyway, I'll hand over to Adrian. He'll take us through today's session. So over to you, Adrian.
Cool, thanks, Scott. So welcome, everyone. If you haven't met me before, I'm Adrian. I work with a company called Using Technology Better. I'm based in Adelaide, South Australia, so up in the Adelaide Hills. And today we're going to run through just what NotebookLM is, how you can use it, how you can access it. And it's going to be one of those sessions where you can play along as well. So if you've been to our sessions before, you'll know that we'll do some bits where I'll do a bit of demonstration, then you can jump in and play and kind of learn as we go along. So it's not just you listening to me for an hour and a half, which would be incredibly boring. So a couple of things to align your headset with in terms of the responsible use of AI at Woolies. This also underpins what you should do inside the NotebookLM area, because once again, it's one of those, it's an AI tool inside that Gemini suite, so to speak. So just ensure that you align yourself to these 5 pillars of safeguarding all personal information for the privacy part of it. Ensure that your AI inputs and outputs are accurate. Make sure if you put something in, it's going to come out the way you want it to. So you need to be the gatekeeper on that. You need to apply your wisdom. It's like when you put a prompt in. If you get a prompt that you get something a bit dodgy or a bit strange coming out of, you just don't accept what's being spat out at you. You need to actually kind of measure it up as well. Ensure that all solutions are unbiased and avoid unfair outcomes. And we'll talk a bit about that when we talk about prompting as well. And also be open about the usage of the AI when you're doing things, and take responsibility for the decisions and the outcomes that you have in that space. So these are all documented for you to be able to have a look at what we just mentioned at the beginning. So we go, all right, no worries, we know where we're sitting inside this space. So NotebookLM is part of the Gemini suite, and it's a generative AI tool. Now, it's a bit of a difference about how it works, but it's basically the same thing. As generative AI is a type of artificial intelligence which helps you create content based on information that it can get its hands on. And it gives us the capacity to do stuff a bit differently and a bit more efficiently than maybe what we have before. And as you go through today, I really encourage you to think a little bit about, oh, I could use it here, or I may not use it here, or all the use cases. And last time we met, which was on Thursday, I think last week, a whole lot of people came up with some stuff that we had never thought of, and they're using it in ways that are really cool and great. So that's kind of what we're talking about in this area. So in the Google space, you'll see you've got all this stuff that's been sitting there for a long time. And inside the back end of these things is AI has been floating around for ages. Stuff like spell check has got an AI kind of application attached to it. The idea of being able to do portrait restore in Google Meet, like you make yourself look prettier, that's got to do with AI as well. Now, this is one of the newest AI tools that is launched out of the Google stables. And really about a year, a bit ago, maybe a year and a half ago, it was an idea being kicked around by a few people, and then they started building on it, and then they suddenly found these use cases for it, and now it's kind of being adopted into the Google Workspace area. So it's one of those classic things that works inside the Google area where they kick a few ideas around, they test it, they play with it, and then they build it out, and then it becomes a full-blown product. So that's what it is at the moment. Gmail was exactly the same. Gmail started with a conversation between a couple of people, and it ended up getting to the stage where it is now. So Notebook is heading along those pathways. Now, these generative language models, which we all hear about, so ChatGPT and DeepSeek and all those guys are generative language models. What they mean is that you pop something in there, it kind of predicts what comes next, and it generates a response based on your data. Now, the big difference between, say, ChatGPT or even Gemini Chat, or especially DeepSeek, is that anything that you do inside your account that's locked into Woolworths is locked into that space. So your conversation, your chat, anything that you put into this area is actually locked into your account, so it doesn't go public. If you're using just a normal ChatGPT, the free ChatGPT account to be able to generate something, then that is going to be public. So you've got to be aware that the stuff that you're doing underneath your Google account inside Woolworths is locked into the Woolworths domain. So especially with Notebook, because Notebook, you can actually give it the stuff that it's going to use to give you the responses. So when you do anything in the generative AI space, it uses the information that it can get its hands on, which could be stuff out of your drive, it could be stuff from the web, but it's kind of conglomerating that together. It's probably not a word, conglomerating, but you know what I mean. It's bringing that together to give you a result. With NotebookLM, you're actually loading up the information it needs to be able to draw out those conclusions. And we'll show you how that's going to work as it goes along. So it might be standing a bit gobbledygook at the moment, but it'll make sense as we go a bit further. So NotebookLM is an AI-powered tool that helps you unlock insights from documents, websites, even video files, and turning them into an expert knowledge base. Now, it means that you can research faster, but it also gives you the ability to be able to generate and create things based on stuff you already have. It means that your content creation is a lot more streamlined. It all means that your productivity can be way better than what it is at the moment. And we'll talk about some use cases, and you'll start thinking about where you can use it. So Notebook is now at quite a mature space, and it's got they keep on adding more things to it. And we're going to show you most of them today as we go through. Now, if you came to the Gemini training last year, we would have talked a little bit about hallucinations. And a hallucination is where your AI model or your generative AI model comes up with something that doesn't quite make a bit of sense. So sometimes it'll kind of come up with some bits and then kind of morph out and give you a response that isn't quite appropriate or doesn't quite make sense. And that's called a hallucination. Now, when Gemini or ChatGPT or any of those models are finding and using information to create a return from a prompt, if there's something missing, they'll just fill it with gaps that they can fill in. And that's why sometimes you get these hallucinations. But inside NotebookLM, because you are providing the data, the context, the resources for it to draw its responses from, hallucinations are really, really low, but basically non-existent because of the fact that it's not getting anything, it's just using what you have put in. Now, when you see how it works, you'll go, oh, now I get it. Now I understand how it works. So it won't actually answer anything outside of its realm. And we'll show you how that works. So some use cases for NotebookLM, if you think about it, is like onboarding new people. You can have all your how-to manuals loaded into NotebookLM. A new employee can come in and type some stuff in and get a response from it, which would be really good. You can use it to research market, how the market's traveling, the analysis and the competitor information if you want to do that as well. You might be able to centralize a whole lot of information to be able to have those internal documents easily accessed and resourced by other people, and also you can create content from here as well. Now, as we go through, you'll probably think of another million, not another million, it's probably too big. You'll probably think of some other ways in which you can actually participate or actually be able to access stuff in this area. So that's kind of the nutshell of how we're going to go. So today, as we go along, please feel free to play along. And I'll show you where to get Notebook and we'll play along as well. So if you can and you've got the ability to do it and you've got two screens, whack me onto one screen and have your notebook open on the other screen so you can play around that as well. But also, as we go as well, if you haven't got those two screens, you can just tab between the two windows if you need to be able to make sure you can see what's going on. So that's kind of one of those caveats. Now, what I like to do is like to bring people into collaborative documents so we can learn from each other. Because as we go through today, we're going to be putting some prompts into Notebook and we're going to be getting some responses out of it. So we'd love everyone to kind of be able to participate in doing that. Now we've got 96 people in the room at the moment. And so what we want to be able to do is drop you all into different collaborative documents. Now, if I said threw you all into one document, that 96 people would make the whole thing kind of fall over a little bit. So we've got a bit of a process to be able to help you get into a collaborative document, so it's not going to be overwhelmed, that you can access afterwards to find, you know, grab the prompts that you used and also look at what other people have used as well. So what I'm going to do in a minute is drop into the chat a link to a Google form. And when you get to that Google form, the first little thing at the top of it's going to say, hey, can we grab your email address? Now the reason for that is because once you submit the form, you'll get an email from me that will give you a link to a collaborative document. That makes sense. It's a bit of a kind of a long way of making it work. So inside this space, we're going to ask you a couple of questions. What do you think you might be using Notebook for? And you can tick a couple of these and then just go submit, and then you'll get an email. The way the email will look very similar to this one. It'll come into your account from my demo account, and it will go, thanks for filling in the form, blah, blah, blah. And at the bottom of the email will be a link to a Google Doc. If you click on that link, that'll then bring you into a collaborative document. So it's a long way of getting there, but it helps us all get into one spot at the same time. So in the chat, let me just go drop that in now. I'm going to pop in a link to that form, and I'm just going to pop it in like this, and I'll pin it as well so you can come back to get it. So if everyone just click on that link, you can jump into that link and have a look at that form, have a shot at filling in the form, and then submit it. And once you submit it, then we'll be able to you'll get an email from me pretty well within a couple of seconds, letting you know that you've been dropped into a Google Doc, which is cool. Excellent. Thank you, folks. So I can see people filling in. We've got, golly, up to 50, it's 55 already. Superb. Cool. Now, once you get into one of those forms, what we'll do is we'll bring you onto another. I'll show you how it's going to work in terms of, and once you get the document, I'll show you how we're going to operate inside that document as well. I'll just make sure we get everyone into those docs, which is pretty good. Cool. I just realized there might be something a bit funny with my code. It's okay. So I'm just going to open up one of these forms that you've got and pop it into this window and show you what's there. So when you get into this document, you'll find that there's some stuff that we're going to look at. And as we go through today, what we're going to do is we're going to just work through this document and have a look at some tasks that we're going to play around together. Now, the way I've set the document up, I'm using tabs. So you'll see on the left-hand side, you've got a tab between task 1, task 2, and task 3. There's 3 tabs there. And then on the left-hand side, there's a space for your name, and then a space for when you're going to get a bit of a result from here. So you'll see in here, we've got a place for you to put your name in there and whatever prompt you popped in there, and then your response, depending on the task that we set. So just to let you know that. But when we get to this spot, great to drop your name in there and then put in where your prompt is. Now, if you want to do that now, once you jump into your document, find a row that no one else is in, pop your name in, and then when we get to the first activity, then you can show us the prompts in those kind of spaces as well. The great thing about this is if someone pops a crackerjack thing that's worked out for them, you can use that and copy it and use it later on in your workplace as well. If you're finding that someone's writing over the top of you, because there'll be a whole stack of people there, you can just go down to the bottom of the table. And if you want to add some more rows, you can just hit tab and add some more rows down the bottom if you wish to. Alrighty. Now at the top of the screen, there's some links that we're going to use, but we'll show you that when we get to that part of the demo. So it looks like most people are kind of into that space, which is looking pretty cool. Let me just check my little formie here. That looks pretty nice. Good. Alrighty. Excellent. Excellent news. Right. So make sure I don't close off my tabs. That'd be good. Sweet. So let me come back to this one here. Cool. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to play around a little bit with the way in which we use Notebook, and we're going to try a couple of things. First one is we're going to do a bit of a competitor analysis. We're going to look at what Coles are offering for sales and compare that to Woolworths. We're going to pop that into a notebook and then ask it some questions. And then we're going to use it to help us solve a problem where we might have had a very poor outcome for a product launch that we had. And then the last one is for you to be able to kind of play around that space and see if you can build something else that you can use as well. So we've got 3 sections we're going to run through. Now, whenever we do anything in this space, it's really important to think a little bit about the way in which we ask questions and frame up a prompt. Now, if you haven't been to a session on Gemini before or an AI session before, a prompt is the question, the statement that you ask to get you a result. The better the prompt, the better the result is going to be. And so if it's like a Google search, if you do a really poor search, you're going to get a very bad result in that search as well. So with prompting, the better the prompt, the better the result. And what we are looking at and finding that works really well is having about 5 different ingredients to a prompt, where you give it a role, you specify the goal of what you need to have there, what kind of audience is it going to, what kind of restrictions on the style that you want, and then how you want the result formatted. Now, out of those 5 things, we're saying around about a minimum of 3 should be there to give you a better result. So if you have a look on the right-hand side of the screen, there's one prompt that's a good prompt. You know, how should I manage the new product launch of Winter Bake? That'll give you a result. It'll give you quite a good result, but it won't be as good as if you frame it up with the other bits that are there. So giving it the role of an executive manager, if you're going to develop a project plan, a detailed plan for Winter Bake, you're going to have it written in detail for milestones and key roles, put it in a table and summarize it in a positive email that can be used as a press statement. So you've framed up what you're trying to get out of there really, really well. Now, one of the great things that I found that I do is if I get a prompt that works really well, I'll save it in a document that's got there, but we'll also show you that, you know, any prompt that you use, you can actually save and archive as well, so you can come back to it. All right, I think that's the end of my slide decks. There is too, good, right. So let's jump into Notebook. So I'm just going to come out of this window here and grab my little notebook over here. So if you go to that link that Scott gave you, which is NotebookLM.google, which has been pinned up above the little HTTPS, the notebook that I gave you, then you'll get brought to a window that looks very similar to this. If you haven't been to Notebook before, up the left-hand side, you've got this little launch area up here, but if you click on this little button in here, this takes you to your notebook. You can read through all this stuff if you wish to, but we're going to kind of circumvent that by jumping in and playing around as well. So if we open this up, it'll come up to a window that looks like this. So if you can give me a thumbs up if you've got that sitting on your window, that'd be cool, and then we'll jump into the next bit as well. I'll try to count the thumbs, but in a minute they'll turn into exploding thumbs and I won't be able to count them, but it's looking pretty good. Cool, sweet, lovely, ripper. Alrighty, so let me get rid of this one here. I might leave it there. So you can see when you open it up, at the moment you may not have any notebooks there if you haven't played in this space. So up in this space here tells you all the notebooks that you've created. And these at the moment are in a tiled view. If you wish to, you can turn it into a list view, very similar to the way Google Drive looks. So you can have a list view like that, that's just got them listed out like that. To me, that doesn't quite look as nice as this view here. So I like this view. Up the top right-hand side, you have some settings that you can change. Not a lot, but in the space in here, you can come and change whether it's in light mode, dark mode, or just copies what you've got set on your device. So if on your Chromebook, you've got it set to be in dark mode, it will then mirror that, but you might want to change this to dark mode as well. It just changes the window that looks a little bit like that. I think it looks pretty cool in dark mode, but I'm going to leave it the other way around because sometimes people find it a bit hard to see things on my screen. So I'm just going to go back to light mode. Cool. It stores them, or it it puts these on your page in the most recent ones that you've used. So you can change this around a little bit inside here if you wish to. It's kind of, there's not much more you can do in that space. On every notebook you create, you have got 3 dots. These 3 dots give you some options where you can actually delete a notebook if you wish to, or you can remove it from this window if you wish to as well. All right, so that's kind of that setup. So let's come and create a new one. Now, the view that you're going to see now will be on my screen because I've got a wide screen. If you've got like a laptop, you're running off a laptop, you'll see it slightly differently. I'll tell you what you'll see on your laptop as well. So when I go to create new, it's going to ask for, it looks like this now, because I'm on a widescreen device, it gives me these 3 different areas. It gives me my sources, gives me my little chat window, and gives me a window called Studio. Now, if you're on a laptop, then you'll probably only see one of them at a time, just because it doesn't fit on your screen. At the top of each of these, you have got this little window here to be able to reduce that view. So you see I've got a little kind of, I know it's like a little panel that can get rid of that. So if I get rid of that, it just squishes it to the side, and I can squish this one to the side as well. So my working space is this chat space in the middle. So I can undo them if I wish to, depending on what you see and what you do. Yes, you'll see that in a tick when we go through about what it can do. So basically, in a nutshell, you guess this is drawing information from what you feed it. So you've got control over the content that it spits out. Gemini will use either a file that you've given to it, or will actually make it up based on that predictive language model that we talked about earlier. So it's a slightly different function. Once you're in here as well, there's a couple of other things you can see. Up the top right-hand side, you've got the settings. And inside here, you can just change the color around on this as well. You've also got the ability to share. Now, we'll talk about sharing in a minute, okay? So we won't jump into that right now. We'll jump into that in just a smidge. And I can blow this up a little bit bigger for you, because I just realized it's a little bit small. There we go, cool, lovely. All right, so on this left-hand side, we've got a thing called our sources. So this is kind of like the, I was gonna say the brains, or the resource files that you're going to load into here is what your notebook will be able to draw from. Okay, so whatever you load in here is where it's going to get its content from. So instead of making stuff up, it's going to use this as its point of truth. Over here in the middle window is your chat window, where you can have a conversation back and forward with Notebook to be able to generate the content that you want based on the information that you've loaded into it. So once again, it's slightly different from Gemini. Gemini will make up stuff if it hasn't got if it's got gaps. Notebook will only use what's sitting inside this space. And then the studio bit is where we get to play around with it a bit, and we'll talk about studio when we get to the end. It's got some really nice features in here. Now, with everything inside the Google space, when you first create a notebook, it's going to come up and call it Untitled Notebook. So my advice is to come into here and name it. So you just come up to the top, click in there, and just type over what you want to call. I'm going to call this Delete Monday, so I can make sure I get rid of this later on, and I might even do better than this. And we're going to add some stuff inside this space as we go. So we're going to add some sources. Now that's where our little documents are coming in, because what we want to do is use our documents, the document that I shared with you, because it's got some links in there, and we're going to load them in. We're going to have some conversations around it. So I'll show you how to load the data in. Then I'll give you the challenge, and then you can use use those documents to be able to put in the prompts that you've used and the results that you get. So this Add a Source button, when you open it, it'll open up a window like this, and it has 3 boxes down the bottom that enables you to grab stuff that you've got access to. So you can grab stuff from your Google Drive, which can be a doc or a slide. You can grab a link from a website or from a YouTube clip as well, or you can just grab some text that you've copied and pasted from somewhere and drop it in there as well. So you can pop them in there. You'll notice that you've got 300 sources that you can pop in here. So you've got 300 documents, 300 things that you can load into this space for it to have as part of its brains. Now, if you want to upload something like a PDF or maybe a CSV file or an audio file or anything like that, you'll come to the center spot here to upload. Okay, and that's especially if you're using PDFs, because I can't grab my PDFs out of my Google Drive. I can only grab a Google Doc or a Google Slide at this present time. So what I'm going to do, whoops, no, I'm not going to make it any bigger because that's no good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come and grab this link one, and I'm going to drop in a link to one of the websites that's inside your document. So if I open up my document here, and I'm going to grab the link from the Specials Hub at the top here, just copy it. And I'm going to come back to my notebook, come to website, and pop in the URL like that. And then when I go insert, it will then go and check that website. It will insert it and give me a tick if it's all rosy and good. Oh, it didn't like me. That's weird. Let me come and try that again. This is what I did on Friday, Scott. I thought I fixed it as well. Let me have a look. Try this one. That should work.
I'll just answer a question that came in while you're grabbing that. So the 300 document limit is the number of individual sources of documents, whether they're PDF files, Google Docs files, or links to publicly facing websites. So it's 300 is the limit. And within those individual bits of document, there are limits as well in terms of if you've got to upload a video, it can't be over 200 meg. The websites have to be like public facing, so they can't be behind a login for example. So there are some nuances, and there's actually a help site which I can post a link here to in a sec.
Cool. There you go. There's the link. Grab that link from that one. It's weird because when I do a trial, I always test out my links before I run them, and then it depends on the real what's grabbing, and whether it's got to be on a website that is public facing and doesn't require a paywall or a subscription to get to it. And often, let me show you the difference, is that if I have, say, a question mark in it, so see how, golly, I'll go back to my document. In my document, see how I've got this question mark hanging in here? Sometimes when that's in there, it doesn't like going to that website. Okay, so sometimes this part after it doesn't like, but for some reason it worked okay this morning, it's not working now. So I've just grabbed this other one. So this will now go to the Woolworths site and pop it in there. So when you look at my notebook, I've now got one source in there, and I've got a bit of a tick next to it, and it's all really good to go. So I can now add another source, or I can ask some questions about this. So I might come down to here and just ask a question about this website. So down in here, all I need to do is say, I don't know, what are the specials this week? And it will then go through it. Oops, tells me the website, that's terrible. It's not actually giving that source. So let me jump back into here and see if I can grab some. Let's try that website, see if that works this time. So if someone gets one of the links to work in this space, then let me know, and we'll use that as our little point of truth. Let me add this source, see if this is going to work for me. No, it didn't let me that time. Interesting, interesting. What I might do is I might grab the...
Just pop in the chat when I use that worked as a link.
Ah, cool. Thanks, Simon. Let's try that one. I'm going to get that one, turn that one off. Now you'll notice that what I've done is I've got that original one in here that didn't work, and I can just turn off that source. So I can say, okay, I'd like to look at some stuff, but just don't look at that source. So I'm going to try this one here. I'm going to come here again. I'm going to ask the same thing. Now, what are the specials? And might even type it a lot better than that. That's still not giving me anything. Interesting. So what I'll do is I'll grab from my document over here, I'll grab the Coles one. Let's have a look at what Coles are offering us as well. So I'm going to come back to my notebook, just to add another source. Come to the website one. Pop in there. Cool. Let's come in here and say what specials are on this week. Let's give it the sources. Let's see how it goes. It pulls out everything from that one from Coles, those deals in that space in that area as well. So give that a shot. Pop in there, drop the Coles one in there, ask some questions about it, and see how we go as it works as well. And then we're going to jump in. I'm going to give you a couple of ticks to play in that, just drop the area. And then what we're going to do is get it to do some comparisons for us. So while that's sitting in the background, I'm going to try to get mine to work. I might have to log into my account, which is going to be interesting. I haven't got an account in this account. Ah, that's what it's doing. Cool. See if this one works. I'm going to add a catalog into mine. Yeah, at least it's got the catalog working. Looks like mine's going to look good too. Beautiful. I'm going to turn off that one. And I might say compare the specials between Woolworths and Coles. I'm going to turn off the Coles one. Beautiful. Thanks, Rachel. Yep. So I might have to log in to get that one to work. Yeah. So it looks like the Woolworths ones, you need to get past that little kind of sign-in wall to start with. If you sign in with your account, it will then run automatically for you. It's not running for us at the moment. So what I'd love you to do is see if you can drill down and ask some questions to find out some information about those specials. Now, if you've got the Woolworths and Coles one working, you can do a bit of a comparison between the two. Or if you've only got the Coles one working, you might want to find some questions about that. So I might want to have a questions about, I'm going to say, what specials are appropriate, let's say, for a vegan. And what it will do, there you go, like that. Got Coles this week, it's given us some stuff. We've got Piner Clean, we can have some Piner Clean if we want to do that some, and you've got some other bits and pieces you could do in that space as well. So you can actually do this kind of thing as information. I don't understand what that Rachel one means, sorry, that's okay. So the deal with the way in which it's grabbing the information out of the Coles one is I can actually ask it anything about it, and on that web page, it'll grab that information for me. So in the document, you'll see the first kind of question we've got in here is you're carrying out some market research with one question. Find out what the top 5 specials are, or what can I save the most money on this week. Pop your prompt into here and pop out what your response is. So I'm going to come right down to the bottom of this one after Amanda and pop in my prompt to this one. And my prompt is going to be and I'm going to pop that into the chat, into my little notebook, and see what result I get from that area. And then I'm going to revise that and come back to it as well. So just have a play in the space for a little bit. If you've got both websites working, that'll be superb. And you can compare that in that area as well. And I'm just going to pop in my response, and then I'm going to refine my prompt a little bit to get a better result. So I'll let you play in that space for a tick, and I'm going to refine my prompt to get a way better result than what I've got at the moment. Cool. Oh, yeah. I think it's only text and data, Ben. I'm not sure the imagery. I know that when it looks at a video, it grabs the transcript off the back of YouTube, but I know I can upload an MP3, so it must use voice to text in that space as well.
And I should note that's only for today. You look how much NotebookLM has changed over the last 6 months. It's a different product to what we saw 6 months ago. So might not do it today, but give it time. I'm waiting to get hold of the roadmap, but there will be a lot more of these features coming.
Cool. I'll put a timer on the screen for a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to come and show you something else we can do in this space and how we can refine this. So I'm just going to come into my little timer and put that on the screen for, let's say, 3 minutes and get you to play in that space. So Wilson, in response to yours, I think what it will do is go to the page that you've given it. Just try it, give it a shot. So go to another page and see what's there, but it's only going to grab the information that's got because it hasn't got access to the full website.
Correct. And we'll just say that it's a static update as well, so it takes a copy of it. So if you attach a website or a Google Doc, essentially just grabs a time snap copy of that, and it's not a dynamic update. You actually have to go back into the sources and do a refresh in the data. That is one of the feature requests we have raised with Google to have a dynamic update.
And John, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, thanks. Is there some restrictions on the nature of websites that you can read in? For example, I just put in like ABC News and like Irish Times News, and I was going to ask like what are common stories across them, because it was the issue with the login there for Woolies was just throwing me off the comparison there. But both of them sources wasn't able to import them. It's coming up in red as well. Is it just due to the nature of them types of websites, or what is it going on there?
Yeah, if they're behind if you need an account to sign in or behind a paywall, you won't be able to get into them because it's just grabbing it. It's going to be the public access area, and the data on that first page kind of directs what it can grab as well a little bit.
I guess with all of them, right, you don't need an account, right? You can just publicly view them. So I just don't understand, what is it about that I can't see?
There may be some other stuff that has been set up by those individuals, especially news sites, because of all the content scraping. I know there's been a lot of legal cases with them over the last 12 months. So there may actually be some other restrictions on certain content they may not be able to obtain from those sites.
Okay.
So I wouldn't be surprised if those particular news sites have got something on their pages to stop tools like this coming in and scraping information.
Gotcha. And just in relation to when you said to log into the Woolies site and then it'll be able to just retrieve the specials information, do you just mean open another tab in your browser and log in there?
Whoops, my timer's just stopped. What I think it means, and now Rachel might be able to tell us as well, is when I get to this spot in here, I've got to log in at the top, and I haven't got a login account in my here for me to be able to grab it. But as I said before, I was running some stuff over here, scraping information off for me, and it's just not doing it at the moment.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. And Hemas, you got your hands up as well?
I had a similar question to John. The Coles website seems to be pulling all the information from the Coles website, but not from the Woolworths website. I guess it's again because of the login.
Correct. Yeah. Cool. I have to think of another example later on, but the next one we're going to show you works quite nicely. Now, a couple of things while we're sitting in our little notebooks. Let me come back to my notebook. If you are in a notebook and you think, oh my goodness, I want to go back to the other notebooks that I've created. If you come up to the logo at the top here, this will then give you this spot over here. So it's kind of like, it's not like a backward arrow. It just takes you back to the space in here. So if you're in a notebook that you want to come back out of, you can just come back up to the top here and hit that little notebook logo, and it will take you where you want to go. So if I come to mine in here, you can see I've got my 4 sources. It's looking quite kind of averagey. But what I want to do is do a bit more stuff inside this space. If I ever want to look at one part of my sources, I can just click on one, and it will open up for me and give me a summary of what's inside that source. So it will quickly go through and tell me what's sitting inside that space and give me a bit of a breakdown of what's sitting inside there. Summarizes the core topics in there as well. Now, what I would love to do is I want to grab some files that I've been working on and add them in here. So surprisingly enough, what I've been doing is I've been working on some resources to do with a bit of a product launch that we had that didn't quite work well. And it was quite bad because we had this whole thing sorted out and it was really quite nice for me. But what happened was that when we actually went to run our little kind of session, then the actual promotion that we didn't work very well at all. So if you've come to one of my other trainings, we always run a pretend company. And our pretend company is called Gordon's Fresh Food Groceries, very similar to Woolworths. And Gordon's has a whole lot of stuff that they've been doing. And in 2021, they had a winter bake product launch, and it failed. And it didn't go that well at all. So what they did was they had a bit of a reflective time where they analysed where the failures were, and then they documented the whole lot of it. So they came up with a detailed analysis of their failure, and they popped it all into a document, and they've gone through about the things that did not work well for that failure. Now, what tends to happen in a company sometimes is that when you have been part of a product launch that hasn't gone well and it's fallen over, you remember that. So when you do it a second time, you automatically don't do the same things twice. But often you have a change of staff and you might have new people coming on board that haven't been part of that failure. So therefore they haven't got the runs on the board to understand why things didn't work. And that's where Notebook can help us, because what we can do is we can load that knowledge in and we can use that to help us create a new product launch that doesn't do the same things that didn't work the first time. So it helps us be able to reflect on it. So what I've done is I've popped into a shared drive the failed report that we did, the success factors that we should have had in there as well, and also a bit of a copy of the winter bake campaign. So we've already got it all kind of sitting in there, but now we want to use that to create a new one. Now, the way we do that is by linking that to our files. So the way in which it works is inside your notebook, if you come down to your add a source, you can come down to here and grab some Google Docs. Now, you'll notice in a tick, I'm going to come and do come to my little shared with me area, and I've got all this stuff inside here from my winter bake area, and that'll open up in just a smidge. And these are all the documents that we can play around inside this space. So we can grab this one, and we can grab this one, and we can actually insert them into our document. Now, as Scott said, this now becomes a static link between our document and our file. So inside here, I've got my winter bake product launch there. Gives me a breakdown of what's actually happened inside that document. But at the top here, we can resync it to our Google Drive. So it's a point in time grab that gets popped into Notebook. So if the original file updates inside your Google Drive, then you'll need to go and refresh it up in here. Okay, so that's probably one of the things to be aware of. It's a point of time grab. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a copy of a link to all the documents, and you can jump in and have a look. So what it will look like for you, let me jump into my friend Mitchell here. What it will look like for you is you'll come to your space, you'll come to add a source, come down to Google Docs, come to shared with me, and you'll have the winter bake resources in here, which you can come and grab all these documents and add them to your notebook. Now, where it lives is I'm going to drop into here. I'm going to drop a link to that the note resources as well, but also in the document that you've got. So inside here, if I come down to task number 2, you've got a link here to the document as well. So you can just copy this link, and you'll have to pop that link into your browser tab and open it up so their notebook knows that you've got a shared document that you're going to go to. And then once it's been opened up, you can then grab and drop those documents into your notebook. Now, I'll give you a couple of ticks to do that because there's a couple of steps. So either use the link out of the chat that I've just popped in there, or grab the link from the doc. It will take you to the same spot. Open it up so you can see the files. Then go to your notebook and then import those Google Docs into your space as well. So I'll just do that while you're doing that. I'm going to do the same thing at my end as well. Alrighty, so give us a thumbs up if you've got some of those documents sitting inside your notebook, and then we're going to jump into the next little challenge to it. Excellent. Cool. Now you'll notice that in my, thanks that folks, terrific. You'll notice inside my Google Drive, I've actually got PDFs as well as Google Docs. What I've done is I've just converted the PDFs to a Google Doc so you guys can access it. Otherwise, you'd have to download the PDF and then upload it into your notebook. So I've just kind of taken that step out of it for you. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to be able to find out what we should do to be able to have a better result. We've got a really failed space. We want to actually have some success next time we do. So I'm going to come in here and just say, what things failed with the winter bake product launch? Now, this is not a very big lot of documents, but if you've got a financial report, golly, failed, will it work? Might work with me. There you go. So now it's given me from the 2021 winter bake what it's actually failed, where it's failed. So if you've got a really big PDF, it might be your annual general report. It might be your financial statements. It will pull apart that and you'll be able to ask it questions. Now you'll notice in this space, now I'm going to give you 5 minutes to play in just a smidge. In this space, every time it's got a number, it's referencing back to the document for me to be able to find it. So if I click on the reference there, it'll open up my source guide and bring it down here so I can see exactly where it's getting it from. So then we can go, oh, that's where it's from. I can read a bit more if I need to get a bit more context on this space as well. So anything inside here gives you the ability to drill down even further to be able to do that. So I'll give you a couple of ticks to play in that, and then we'll play around a little bit with what's working on. If you don't want like the prompt, hit the refresh button up here, and it will clear the chat history, and you can start again and put another prompt in there to do it. So I'll give you, I'm going to give you about 4 or 5 minutes to play in that space, and then we're going to delve in a bit more and show you what else you can do in here as well. So I'm going to stop my microphone, and I won't be talking, but I'll grab a timer for you, and I'll pop it on the screen and give it some dedicated time to play in this space, asking it questions and seeing what you come up with. In that document, I'm lying here. In that document, if you want to pop in what your prompt is and what your response is, that'd be great for this task number 2 so other people can see what's going on. I'm going to do mine down the bottom here. Okay, I'll call you back in 1 minute. Alrighty, time's up. So I had a question from Diane about what happens if you've got a Sheets document. I found that I can analyze a sheet within Sheets itself because that's got a nice function in it. It doesn't seem to like Sheets too well in Notebook for some reason. I have uploaded a CSV and it hasn't quite liked it. I've also uploaded a PDF and it kind of does it. Sheets is the most complex thing for any AI tool to work with. So it's not quite there to be able to analyze and pull the data out of Sheets like you'd like to as well. Alrighty, so I'm going to do a new product launch. And I'm just going to ask it, what stuff should I put in there for a new one? So it's now going to grab information from my failed one, as well as my new one, as well as the other information there about putting a new place in a new product launch, because it's using the other information as well. So you can see that it's giving me a whole lot of information here that I can use. Now, if I really like this, and I go, that's fantastic, I want to come back to it, I can come and save it to a note. If I click on save it to a note, what it does is it pops over here and adds a new note in there that I can come back at a later date. Now, once again, this note is a point in time grab. So if I've updated any of my sources, then this note will now be kind of old, so to speak. Down at the bottom here, we can come and have a look at these other bits. So I've got a whole other suggested questions down here that we can tap on. So I can say what timeline should be there, and it will come through and it will break out a timeline for me as well. So it gives me these kind of things, a 2-week launch for a pre one. I've got some teasers, I've got some campaign duration and some post-campaign evaluation. So it's already broken that down for me based on the information that I've got. So I think this is quite a valuable little tool for us to be able to jump into and play around in this space to be able to do that easily. So I'll give it a couple of secs to play around with this a little bit and create some more in-depth questions about the product launch, and either save it as a note if you wish to, but also what you can do, which I'll show you, then I'll let you go play for a little bit. You might go, well, this is a really superficial type of way. I'd like it to be a bit more, say, analytical, or I might want to have a certain persona around it. You can come up to the top here, and you've got these little tools that look very similar, like the icons that you have for advanced search. Now, if I click on this, it gives me the ability to actually change the way in which I want to be able to have it. So I can have it as an analyst as well, or I can have it as a guide in terms of the conversation, or I could customize it. So inside here, you can say you are a product development lead. You need all responses to be in Australian May 17. Cool. So you can refine the way in which you want your responses to be kind of produced for you. So if you've played around with gems, it's a very similar setup here. So now we can refine it around this and go save. And now our responses are going to be along those lines as well. So I'm going to say develop a detailed product launch and include key dates. And put that in there, it will now bring out a better result for us. I'll wait for it to come. It's going to grab all the information out of the other documents for me. There we go. That looks pretty cool. I'm going to copy that and drop it into my document so you can see what it does in the bottom here. Ah, come on, go the wrong one. Here we go. Ah, go on, this one here. I'm going to come down into here. Going to add this one. So now you can see I've got a way better response because I've kind of primed the way in which the model is going to answer my questions. So I'll give you a couple of ticks to play in that space. I'll show you where it is again. Once you've got a prompt written in, you come up to the lines over here, and you can configure by coming to the custom section to be able to have what you want your prompt to come out by. And it will remember it for this space as well. I'm just going to go save and leave it in there. So I'll give you a couple of ticks to play in that area, and I'm going to grab another prompt that I'm working on as well. John, you got a question?
Once you update your preferences for the response, is there a way of getting it to regenerate the response? I just typed in as a prompt redo after doing it, but is there just like a refresh button somewhere, or would you just recommend doing it like that? And
I just do it again, yeah. I haven't had much success with the refresh.
Okay. Yeah, I just typed in redo and it did it fine. Yeah, cool. Okay.
No worries. Grab another prompt there. Let me just frame it up a bit better. So the more comprehensive you put your prompt in here, the better your results you're going to get down the bottom here as well. If you like something, once again, you can save it to your notes. Now, what's the time? Oh, crikey. Okay. So let's kind of jump onto the next bit, because what can happen a little bit in this area is that you do end up going down a bit of a rabbit hole in being able to do some really nice stuff in this space. But you can see it's grabbing the information, it's cross-referencing it for me. I've got some information here that works really well. So if you can imagine a junior coming into your team, or someone who hasn't had experience in doing something, if you've got the information of what went well and what didn't go well, they can now draw on that as a point of truth to be able to get better at what they're doing and actually not make the same mistakes twice, which is brilliant. Now, on the right-hand side, when we get to our studio, let me just kind of make this page a little bit smaller. Come across to my studio over here. The studio gives me some bits to be able to do some stuff that's quite nice. I can create a frequently asked questions document if I want straight away based on that. It will now generate a new note for me, and it will give me some FAQs based on what we've got there. So if I look at here, it gives us some information about the marketing and sales FAQ, core practices, what are the elements that I need, what's my target market, all those kind of things have been built out for it based on the information that we've got across here in our resources. Okay. Now, the lovely thing about this is we can then come in and do a briefing doc. This gives you a high-level briefing of what you actually are covering inside your chat areas. If I go to a briefing doc, it'll now create that for me. It'll now generate it for me and give me some answers. In a sec. So it's now summarized it for me in these 3 different kind of headings as well. So once again, it's summarizing those big documents into those areas for us to be able to have a look at really easily and quickly. So if you think you've got a big PDF of some information that you need to read before you go to a meeting, you can get this to do a comprehensive kind of overview of it by doing a briefing document for you by using this tool in here. So you might be having to look at the last annual general reports for the last 3 years from Woolworths. You might load them into here, and you might then want to be able to ask some questions about it and pull the information out that you need. Incredibly handy and incredibly useful to be able to do it. Now you can do this with PDFs that are really large. So I've done one with a PDF of about 15 meg. Of course, some of the PDFs got images and things in it, but it will actually enable you to be able to pull apart those things in that space. So let's just show you how that would work. I'm going to come to my plus bit. If you've got a large PDF, you have to choose your file to upload and then bring it into this space as well. And then you can actually read that PDF as well. For today's demo, because we haven't got any PDFs that you can access really quickly, you might want to bring your own PDFs in and have a look and see what it works like and have a look at that space as well. Now, I'll let you have a couple of seconds to play around inside here, and then also play around with your study guides and your frequently asked questions and your briefing doc. A study guide basically gives you, if you're going to take a test on this, it'll create a study guide, what you need to study to be able to be prepared to be able to run it. Slightly different from an FAQ. FAQ tends to has your frequently asked questions. This gives you a study guide for your key terms and some stuff in there. It gives you some questions and it gives you your answers at the end there. So if you are doing something where you need to be able to do some research to be able to kind of do a test or go from upskilling, you can do it in here as well. What I do find that it does really nicely is the glossary of the key terms, because if you've ever stepped into a new workplace, there's a whole lot of key terms and acronyms that people use. It will bring them out into that space there so you can actually understand it as well, which makes sense to you to be out, so you don't actually have to keep on Googling everything. It's coming from your source of information. All right, I'm going to put a timer on the screen for about 3 minutes to have a play, and then I'm going to show you one last thing before we'll get some use cases from your area, and which Scott will share, but I'll also share with you a couple of use cases that I've used. So I'll give you 3 minutes to play in that space to create some high-level notes as well and see how that goes in that space. I'll drop this into our document. Alrighty. All right, cool. Okay, so let's have a look at this. I want to show you something that I've just done in here and explain the way it's worked. So what I've done in that document, and also I'll drop this into the chat as well, I've developed a kind of semi-comprehensive prompt that I want to use. Now, it looks pretty good. I've got some stuff in there. It's got some information about the product launch, the winter bake, where it's going to go. Look at the old analysis. Make sure you don't do the same thing twice. I want to have an executive summary. I want to have a timeline with these dates in it. I want to have some measurement and evaluation. And I've controlled the output format. So real structured document, blah, 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 blah. All dates should be like this. And what I've done down the bottom here is that all language should be in Australian English. Now, what that does is it says, okay, you want to use the colloquial way that Australians will chat rather than actually getting a really nice response. So what it does, I'll show you this. I should have said use Australian spelling, but as I come down, notice how it says Australian English. It's now said, okay, you want to be like this. It says, all right, mate, let's do this. Here's a day to our plan. And it's got some slang all the way through. So just be aware that if you do that little prompt with Australian English, you're not going to get a good result because it's going to give you this kind of gear as well. So just be aware of that. Now, let me just see what other chats have come through while I've been playing in the area. I'm going to drop it into the big bit in here. Yeah, good. Australian English have these Aussie phrases. Yeah, have a yarn, chuck in content spot on. Yeah. So use Australian spelling, not Australian English. So if I come back into here, let me just see if I can change this around a bit. I might actually come back and do the whole thing again. I might come back to here, pop the whole thing in there again and change it to Australian spelling. And you'll find that it should get rid of that and make it a bit more formal for us as well. I could also put all this information in my customized up here if I wish to as well. So that it's always going to take this this state and this side there. Yeah. Oh, no, it still says bonded, so I might have to play around with that. So once again, you need to have your headset of the subject matter expert or the human expert in here in doing this. It's grabbing the information from the right spot. It's just framing it up in a way that I'm not quite like. Now, one last thing before I throw to Scott as well, is that in this area up here, you have got the ability to create a conversation between two people discussing what you are looking at. So it creates a podcast for you based on the information that you feed it. So if you've got a large, say a financial document or an annual general report that you need to read, you can actually have this converted to a podcast so you can then listen to it talking about that information. Now in the customizable bit here, you can customize the way in which the hosts look at the information and the way in which they interpret it to produce the podcast for you. Now, it takes a bit of time to do it depending on how much information you've got there. So all things being equal, I've got one here that we built last week. And it's the same kind of deal. It's got all the resources coming in from what you guys have got. And it's got a podcast between those two things on launching a new product launch. So let me share this tab so you can actually hear what it sounds like. I'll grab a tab. That's this one in here. Cool. So this is the one we did on Friday. Now, if I come into here now and play this for you, you should be able to hear the conversation between the two people.
Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at how to make a product launch really pop here in Australia. And the example we're using is this winter bake campaign, specifically their relaunch that's planned for 2025.
Okay.
And we've got a ton of material on this.
Yes.
We've got marketing guides. We've got reports on social media, campaign analyses. Clearly, someone wants to make sure we don't repeat what happened in 2020.
So you can see that they've got two voices talking like that, and they seem to be jumping between two people. It sounds pretty good. Now, what you can do is you also have interactive mode. So you can actually ask a question, and those two people will come back and give you a response. So I'm going to try it. Now, it may not work because I'm using one microphone going to you and the same microphone is going to this one, so it may not like it. So if I play it like this.
21.
Yes.
And see if it's going to work. I'm going to allow to play and join in with the conversation over here. It may work for me, depends what it's trying to pull out. It may take too long. It's a 21-minute podcast too, so it's going to take a bit of time to be able to pull that into a spot that may work. I might need to make a shorter one for a demo, but you can ask it a question. You can say, what 5 things should I do now to make sure I get a really good product launch? And then the conversation will come back to you based on the information that you've given it. Now, it does take a bit of time to populate that because it's grabbing all that text-based result, turning it into an audio file that you can be able to have the conversation back and forth in that space as well. Now, if you have got a podcast going, I'll just leave it like that. It might come back in the back end there. You can, in that specific prompt, Ben, you could say make it only 5 minutes long if you want to, and it should cut it down as well. I found it tends to be quite, takes it into its own kind of control to be able to do that as well. Now, let me go, I'll just stop that. I'll come back a bit. If you've got it, it's had a trouble connecting this big file. So if you've got it and you want to use it, you can go to the download button and you can download it as an MP4 or a WAV file, and then you can drop it on your phone and you can listen to it. Or you can just grab the link, you can share your notebook and you can listen to it on your phone as well. And Scott will talk about that in a bit. So that audio feature is pretty cool. It's one of those things that is just a nice way of being able to break down those big things. So if you've got a commute and you need to do a whole lot of prep for a meeting, this is a great tool to do. So you could put all the stuff that you need to prep for in your meeting in here under your sources, ask specific questions about it, pop it in as a note, and then get the podcast created on that so you can listen to it as you're commuting in and out of work. Once again, when you do the creation of the podcast, you can be really quite specific with what you want it to do. Otherwise, it's going to make quite a general podcast based on it. Now, if we want to share these notebooks, you can share them internally. You can't share them externally at the moment, okay? So that's only within Woolworths that you can share these. Now, to share a podcast, let me come back and I'll share my entire screen so you can see it a bit better. So inside here, if I want to share my entire thing, I come up to my little share window at the top right-hand side, and oops, my share in here, and I've got a couple of options. I can add people individually, so I can't share with a link. So if I want to share this to Mitchell's inside my domain, I can give him viewing rights, so he can just come in and he can view it. I can also give him editing rights as well. I can also revoke the access if I wish to as well. You can add a Google group here if you've got as well, but you can't share with an individual link at this stage. The other thing you can do is say, okay, if I'm going to send it to him, I might just give him access to chat. And then what that means is he cannot access the sources or my notes, the notes over here, or my sources down here. He can just access the chat so he can ask questions of it. So if you had a whole lot of how-to guides about how to do something in your space that you're working in or in your business unit, yeah, they can just ask questions about that. So it kind of becomes like an internal chat bot that you build out. Now, I want to talk a couple of use cases that you might think will be quite handy. The way I've used this as well is I've put in a whole lot of annual general reports as in terms of a PDF of some very big grocery chains in the Asia Pacific region. And we loaded them all in and got Notebook to analyze both companies to see where the strengths and weaknesses in future kind of growth areas were and come up with some ideas that you need to talk about at your table. So we had some C-suite people sitting in a room looking at their main competitor, looking at themselves, asking a whole lot of questions inside Notebook, and then from that they were able to generate a good response to be able to have a discussion about where they wanted to have those growth areas. We also popped in a financial report that they needed to have a look at. It's like the annual general report. That was in a PDF format. They converted it to an audio file so they could listen to it as they sat home in their commute as well. Now, Scott's got a couple of other ways in which it's been used at Woolworths, and I'll get him to jump on now and just kind of discuss those ones so that you can hear what other people have done in your space as well.
Thanks, Adrian. Yeah, so one of the big advantages we have with NotebookLM over the Gemini app is that NotebookLM only uses the data you give it. So it's not going to go out and make up something or scrape information off the internet and place that in amongst your responses you're trying to get from documents. So some of the big use cases we've had internally come along is how many process documents do you have, like whether in PDF files or Google Docs? You might have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 different knowledge base articles and so forth. And you just want to know how to do different functions. How do I do something? And that's exactly how some teams have been playing around with this at the moment. So I'm just going to, Adrian, to take over sharing my screen.
Yep, go for it.
All right.
I'll just stop. Lovely.
Thanks. So this is a notebook LM that we've only been given the chat interface, so I don't have the rest of the workbook, so only the chat interface. And this is, we're calling it the IT change process block. So this is in IT, whenever we have to go along and modify a system, we have to do a change control, and it's very a process-driven system. And so we've uploaded all of the training materials to this, so presentations, PDFs, and so forth. And so here I just want to make something simple like, how do I raise a change control? And again, it's just has only got the information we've fed it. The response is going to give is pretty accurate because it's gleaning it exactly from the documentation. So it's come back with, hey, these are some steps you need to do, and I might actually ask it a further question, and it has given me some suggested items down the bottom. So what roles perform post-change reviews? Again, this is very IT-driven, but you can see from a process document, I'm able to start querying those bits of information. Now, let's go and pick something else. So this is a example that they're actually going to try and install soon. So as you can imagine, the store environment is very process-driven. So they've uploaded some 200, and I think it was 40 different documents of processes in stores. And let's just say I'm a front-end operator, and I want to know how to process a refund. So I'll ask it, how do I on a POS? So I'm asking, how do I process a refund on a POS? And out of these here, it's come back with, hey, here's the steps I need to do. So it's come back with the step-by-step items, but it's also said, hey, remember these notes here. And the person that built this, I think, built it in about under an hour because it took them that long to get all the documents together and upload them. And that was a large amount. But once they uploaded that, they just had to give it a persona and a bit of a how they want the responses, which I'll show you in the next example. But this is able to give them something really quick. There was no massive technical thing they had to do. It's just uploading the PDF documents, doing a few little bits of customizations inside the panel, and sharing that out to the appropriate people with the view access. So the last one I've got to show you here is this one's for the tech centers. So they've got all of their how do I articles, knowledge base articles, all these different things on how they do everything. Now I've got full edit access to this. So when you give chat only, you're essentially only giving this part of the console in here. You can give the entire workbook, which does have a lot of advantages, especially for the source's point of view, even if it's in a view only format. So here I'm going to ask it, how do I reset a macOS device? Right, so here's come through back with some step-by-step items. But can you notice here, it's got the little numbers. That's the difference here. And that it's actually giving me the reference to the documents where you can click on it and it'll actually bring up the source guide. And that's actually proved to be very powerful for the tech center, and they're using this a lot, especially the person that put this together, but they've got 172 different process documents to put into here. Now, what they have also done is they've configured the notebook. They found that when they were asking questions, the responses they were getting were not quite right. Like they were treating it like more of a knowledge base that anyone asking rather than I'm an IT technician helping. So they've actually given it a conversational style, saying a custom responses and assistance to the IT technician. So it's saying, hey, you're an IT technician, here's the process documents and steps you need to provide. So that's actually proved to be really helpful for them. Now we'll just cover off one or two more things quickly, just with the sharing. So you can see this one's got different levels of sharing, but in terms of the viewer access and what we can share it to, we can only share it to groups and share it to individuals. We can't share it to the entire domain like you can with the Google Doc at this point in time. And we have asked Google for that feature request. There may be a way around this. So if you have a use case where you've got a particular document or particular notebook LM you've created, and it's going to be for a lot of the business wide, come and have a chat to me. We may have a way around which we can do this for you. So they're just some examples of what I've been getting played with in the last few weeks.
Yeah, and I'll answer Kira's question real quickly. Yes, those documents are static.
Yes, they are. So that's one of the feature requests we have in with Google is how can we make this dynamic? So it's doing a constant update. So that's something which once that, I know that feature's been asked for by a lot of businesses, and as I mentioned earlier at the start, NotebookLM is very new. It's only just come under the core offering from Google in the last 2 weeks. So that means everyone that has a named account now has NotebookLM, whereas previously it was only a select few that had it. So we've got 30,000 team members that now have access to NotebookLM. And that it can potentially go down to store team members, which again, come and have a chat to me around some of that capability.
I don't know, but
Yeah.
I have
So I think there's
a question.
Yeah. So John, I think I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. Unreal that you can add in the sources and they link back to the original documents. I think that's a huge benefit. The one question and potential downside then is it whoever set that up as the only person who can add additional documents or remove documents there? Or if you give the ability to link back to the sources and you expose this to like 200 users, if one of them just like messes it up, is it messed up for everyone, or is it essentially maintained?
That's a good question. So it all comes down to any document you share out. You might only want to select for you to have edit access and everyone else to have viewer access. So you can do that. So let's just say if you shared out to your entire team, and let's just say you had 200 team members in your group, Google group, you gave that viewer access. So they can only view it. They can't go and modify anything within that workbook. But you can give an additional team member or two individual edit access. So though you could have some additional people that can go in and add sources and remove sources. So something that's come up with speaking to a few teams is some teams want that dynamic document update, so that way they know if you go and update a Google Doc, it will make the updates in NotebookLM. And that'll be great when that feature comes through. There is actually other teams that do want that static. They don't want it to automatically update because you think in the stores environment it's very process driven, and they'll only want to update a new process document once it's been fully approved. So there will be a variation between some teams want that static, some want the dynamic. So hopefully that answers your question there, John.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
I just dropped a link to a feedback form to give us some feedback, because this is the second one of these we've run. We really want to know exactly whether we've hit the mark or what other stuff we'd like to include in that. So if you've got some time to fill in, that would be very much appreciated. But I want to talk about one use case that I've used it for that you might think, oh, where would I use this other than what Scott's talked about? So I'm in a running dispute with a popular hotel booking company at the moment, and they're resisting my request to refund me money for a hotel that didn't exist that took my money. So I got all their policies about refunds and things like that. I got the policies from the hotel, I uploaded them in there. I got the Australian Consumer Act, uploaded it into there, and some other things as well, and got it to draft a really nice email for me, touching into all those things. So it was completely factual. Nothing's been made up on it, and it created a really nice email that I'm now waiting for a response. So think about those things which would take you a bundle of time. This does it really well. So thank you so much for all your time coming along today. Like an hour and a half out of your life is really, really valuable and precious. So thanks so much for that. As Scott said, this is being recorded. So if you want to come back and watch it again, you can watch it again. And we'll be running some other sessions on Notebook as well as it gets more and more mature, because this is really a year and a bit old. It's just a little toddler, but it's doing some amazing things as well.